A very good
So
evening to all our viewers today. This is Dr. Anjana, your host for this evening. Today, we have a very special session planned for you all. We are going to discuss the less discussed topic when anyone plans to prepare for a foreign entrance exam like PLAB after their MBBS. So, here I would like to mention that we will do this podcast in two parts. Today is the first part that we are airing for you all. And in this part, we will have a very insightful discussion, which will cover topics, like overall exam process of the PLAB. It will also cover topics such as visa applications, looking for accommodation when you travel to UK, what are the costs that you're going to incur per day during your stay there, and how can you reduce your expenses, because that is something which many students struggle with, right? And also regarding the public transport in UK and many more topics. So this will be a detailed session that we're going to have. So let us welcome our speakers, and it is a first for Coach Minister as well, where we are having two speakers today. So let us welcome our speakers for today's session. It is Dr. Ashish Neeli and Dr. Monica. They have been there in UK and done this, so it is like we're getting a first-hand information from these speakers. So I'm very sure they will have many interesting things to share with all of us today. Let me first introduce our speakers. So starting with Dr. Monica. She's graduated her MBBS in 2021, right? And she has been on her PLAB journey since then. She got her GMC registration in September 23. Now she's through with the standalone FY2 pathway. She has secured a F2 training position at University Hospitals Birmingham and is due to start on August 7, 24. So, Dr. Monica, welcome for this podcast, and it's great to have you here today. And
hi, it's
coming to
great to
our
be here. Super
yeah,
excited.
next coming to our next speaker, that is Dr. Ashish Neeli. He has completed his MBBS from JNMC Belgaum, and he's also obtained his GMC registration in September 23. Currently, he is working as a resident doctor in Manipal Hospitals Vijayawada. So, Dr. Ashish, it's great to have you as well here today. Welcome for this podcast.
Thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Anjana.
Yeah. Let us, begin with a very basic question about PLAB itself,
Right,
right? We all know that PLAB has two parts, PLAB 1 and PLAB 2, right?
correct.
Once we are done with PLAB 2, what is the next stage? Is it direct GMC registration, or how is it? Can any one of you please just give a brief on that?
So just to revise your question, after PLAB 2, what are the stages, right?
Yes, correct.
Yes. Once you're done with your PLAB 2, the next step is yes, you do get GMC registered as soon as possible. So
Okay.
there's nothing in between that. Obviously, if you choose to take some time, you can always, because once you're done with your PLAB 2 and you're in the UK, you will have some time in your hands. So a lot of people do choose to do attachments and everything. But when it comes to the actual documentation and the next actual step, it is to get GMC registered as soon as you can.
Right, right. Dr. Ashish, would you like to add something to it?
So as Monica said, that's the only next step, which is the GMC registration for us, which is required for us to work in the UK. And to obtain the GMC registration is again a separate topic. We need a lot of epic verification. There are many
Yeah.
other documents which are required for that.
Hmm.
And yeah, so GMC registration is absolutely the next step, which is required.
Right. So let us just move one step behind, let us look
Hmm.
at a graduate who has just, done with PLAB 1, right?
Okay.
So now
Yeah,
PLAB 1, as I understand, is an online exam which you can take even from in India, right? So you don't have to
correct.
travel to UK for the same. So the graduate has completed his or her PLAB 1 and now is
Hmm.
ready to give a PLAB 2 exam, right? So
Hmm.
for this, they have to be in person present there in UK. So I want to understand regarding the visa application, regarding what is the type of visa that a student will need to apply for. If you can just brief on that.
So
So just a small correction. The PLAB one you had mentioned, it's an online exam.
Right.
It's not an online exam, it's a written exam. It's a paper-based exam. But you
Okay.
were right about the fact that you can take it from anywhere else. So you
Right.
can take
Right.
it from your home country. You don't have to travel to the UK. Just for everyone watching, it is not an online exam.
Right.
Also, when it comes to PLAB 2, the visa that you need, say you are an IMG, you've never been to the UK before, a standard visitor visa is more than enough. You go the normal route. But if you do have a family member that lives there that you are, you're eligible to travel as their dependent, yes, you can go on a dependent visa. The point is you need to somehow get into the country for the exam. And some people would have UK passports. They'll be like, UK citizens or residents. They would have just chosen to do their med school, their MBBS, their foundation graduation outside of the country. In which
Hmm.
case, even if you are a resident, you still have to take the exams, but you won't need to take the visa. So you can just travel into the country whenever. So these are the
Okay.
three ways that you can enter the country, but all three ways you will be traveling for the exam. Just to clarify.
Right. Right. Okay. So yeah.
I
Yeah. Please.
so I assume this whole podcast is mainly based on for IMGs who have done their medicine abroad, like a native
Correct.
of non-UK country.
Correct.
So to shorten the answer, maybe just only a visitor visa and dependent visa if you're a UK resident.
Right. Right.
For most
So
of
here
us,
I
it was a visitor visa.
Okay, okay, right. Here I want to ask, if you're applying for a visitor visa, what are the main documents that you will have to, attach for
Hmm.
because since you both have done this, I'm sure you can give a first-hand information on that. That is why this question.
Yeah. Visa documentation is actually a very important step for to getting into the UK, right? So
Hmm.
your documents have to be picture perfect. So in order to get, I have also seen some of my friends who have uh, not gotten their visa, but not the only reason because maybe the documentation was not right. So let's get the documentation right first. So I can explain on that. So one thing could be a mandatory, which is your passport, and the other
Hmm.
documents are your evidences related to your accommodation, evidences related to your travel, like your PLAB 1 pass certificate, your PLAB 2 pass certificate, your PLAB 1 pass result. You can just screenshot that and then put it as an evidence for your reason for the purpose of travel. And yeah, PLAB 2, your booking for the PLAB 2 exam and your accommodation, your sponsor evidence, if in case if someone else is funding for your trip. In that case, you need the sponsor evidences such as their IT returns, income tax returns, and their acknowledgements, their bank statements for the past 1 year should be enough. And
Okay.
then you would also need to have any um, proof of relationship. Proof of relationship is important. And like I put my birth certificate, which included my father for the was sponsor for mine at that time, and then I put my birth certificate, which had my dad's name.
Right.
And other than that, we
So I
also
think,
have yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
So
Basically, I think what he's trying to say is, if you choose to go with a sponsor, you do have to you have to show proper proof of relations to that sponsor. So we
Right.
say your father is your sponsor, as Ashish said, your birth certificate is a good proof of relationship. But say your spouse is sponsoring you, or somebody
Hmm.
who already lives in the UK, like an aunt or an uncle is sponsoring you, then
Hmm.
for your spouse, your marriage certificate or something, you have to show proof of relationship. But in case somebody in the UK is sponsoring you, in which case you'll need an invite letter or something like that. Just a proof that you are entering the UK, your funds are being sponsored for, and you have a legitimate relationship with the person who is sponsoring you. So this
Right.
documentation should be tight because this is your money documentation. So when your
Right.
money documentation isn't airtight, your visa will get rejected. So for everyone out there listening, please make sure that your money documentation is airtight.
Right. I think
Yeah.
that's something very important that everyone needs to take care of. And also, I would like to ask here, if
Mhm.
a person is going through visitor visa, right? What are the charges approximately, if you can brief on that?
Yeah, I will definitely answer that, but I wanted to inform one other documentation which is important for the visa, which is
Hmm.
an affidavit. We have to take a letter from the sponsor saying that he or she will abide by the rules in the
Hmm.
UK. That is an affidavit, and the why is the sponsor sponsoring? That is one. And
Okay.
there are other certificates which can improve, not improve, which can be used for the additional information just to solidify your application, which could be
Right.
your parents' Aadhaar cards, and your cover letter should be there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
So
yeah,
regarding the
coming
cost,
to
yeah.
yes, coming to the cost for travel. At that time, it was in 2022. It was around. It depends on the flights and the deals, but the best deal I've got was for 85,000 round trip. But
Okay.
it costed me extra. I actually took in a flexi ticket, which I'm not sure with my attachment dates.
Okay.
They were not confirmed at that time. So, for everybody who's watching, I would suggest to book a flexi ticket if your attachment is not yet confirmed or if you're still figuring out, so that once you step into the UK, you can actually find out the sources for attachments once you're in the UK. Like your friends might have another options to refer you to somebody else who can
Hmm.
offer an attachment. That would be really helpful. In that case, if your attachment is not fixed, I would strongly suggest to book a flexi ticket.
Right.
I just
Uh,
like to add one thing to
yes,
that,
yes,
if
please go
I
ahead.
may. Yeah. So in short, a good deal would be somewhere between 60 to 80,000, and the maximum expense that you'd have to give for a flight ticket would be somewhere close to like 1.2 to 1.3 lakhs. So this is the window we're looking at.
Okay.
So a good deal is this side. The maximum you'll have to keep aside is 1.2 to 1.3. So that is one thing I wanted to add. And the next thing I wanted to add is, in case you don't have a sponsor and you're sponsoring yourself,
Hmm.
uh, you will have to show proper money documentation for your bank accounts, right? So make sure you get in touch with a proper visa agent, get to know what the government mandate is for the amount of money that you have to keep in your account for a visitor, standard visitor visa. You
Hmm.
might have to have more money in your account because you're traveling for your exam and everything. So do get in touch with a proper visa agent and figure out how much money you need if you are your own sponsor and you're traveling under your own. So these are the different ways to like make sure your money documentation is right.
Right. So here I would like to ask you both. Do you suggest that you go through an agent for the visa application, or can you do it on your own, or should the student spend some time on that and do it on their own, or should they go through a visa agent? What would be better for them?
So
Um, yeah,
I
Ashish
have
can take this.
this visa process is actually not that hard, and you can actually, if you have a strong evidence, all for your purpose of travel, I would
Hmm.
say it's not a Herculean task. You can just do it by yourself.
Right.
But if you're stuck between when you're the sponsor and you're in a dilemma which documents to put, then I would strongly suggest to take an agent,
Right.
because this is the thing that we don't want to end up in confusion
Right.
and go other
Right.
way.
It is, yeah, it is possible to do your documentation on your own. It might be a little more time consuming. There might be a
Right.
lot more trial and error. If you have the time for trial and error, sure, go ahead. There's nothing wrong in learning to do things by yourself, right? But in case you don't have the time for trial and error, or you want to avoid because everything is money, and you want to
Right.
make sure you don't have mistakes, we would obviously suggest you go with an agent who's done this for a while.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
True. True. Right. So now coming to the PLAB 2 itself, uh, now they've cleared PLAB 1, they want to give a PLAB 2 exam. How can they go ahead and book a slot for the PLAB 2 exam? Do you have any suggestions, or you have any, things that you want to specify in this process? Some things that need to be taken care of while booking a slot for PLAB 2.
There's no suggestions. There's only one way to book the slot, which is the same way you booked your PLAB 1 exam. You go to GMC UK, gmcuk.org, and then you go to your GMC online account again, which you would have already
Hmm.
done for your PLAB 1. This
Right.
time when you go, it will show that you cleared your PLAB 1. You'll have
Hmm.
that there. And the next possible test booking that you can do will be your PLAB 2. So you'll just go to your test booking session. You'll go to the My Test session that you same for PLAB one that you did, and then you'll go to the test bookings, and then you'll have a list of dates available, and whichever date works for you, you will pick that date. So this is how you do it. The things that
Okay.
you have to keep into consideration while you book a slot would be one time. Make sure you have at least the large window is 3 to 4 months. I'm not talking just preparation. I'm talking from the point of you getting your PLAB 1 result to the point of you giving your PLAB 2 exam. 3 to 4 months would be ideal. The reason I give you such a large window is because financials matter, which is the second thing you have to take into consideration.
Hmm.
So, say your financials, you're looking at a basic travel, like that's all you can afford, and you're on a budget. Obviously, you would go for a standard visitor, like you won't go on a priority, right? Which means you have to give yourself 2 to 3 weeks time, 15 to 20 days time to wait for your visa to come, which is essentially a
Hmm.
whole month in itself. So
Hmm.
once you get your visa, then you fly out and then you have to settle in. You'll need time for preparation, which they do suggest you take at least like 20 to 30 days, which is a month, and then another half a month to 1 month to properly practice with people, which you will do in the academy. You will do everything together in the academy. So 1.5 months is a good amount of time to practice, and 1.5 to 2 months. So if you put all of this together, it's 3 to 4 months. So the second thing you take into account is financials. Third thing you have to take into account is mental preparedness. You need to be
Hmm.
prepared for the exam. It's a very it is one of I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is one of the most challenging exams you will take at that particular period in your life.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
Simply because of how much, yeah, simply because of how much is involved during the day of the exam itself, rather than the preparation or anything, which will be a separate topic that we will cover. But yeah, mental preparedness is very important. So that's the third thing you take into consideration. Make
Right.
sure that your head is in the game. Do not travel
And for
unless
most
your
of
head is
us,
in the game.
it's the
Yeah,
first
it
time
is.
experience of traveling to a country all by ourselves or with friends.
Yes,
It's
yes,
kind of
absolutely.
not for the purpose of visit or just for the purpose of visiting around the
Yeah,
country. For the purpose of education, it's yeah,
I think the
it's a
experience
little
in itself will be so overwhelming.
correct.
yeah.
Right.
So yeah, so
Uh,
that's why I said mental preparedness. So that's the third
hmm,
thing.
hmm,
Mentally prepare for how
hmm.
overwhelming this journey is actually going to be for you. In
Right.
the smaller things, not even the actual, you think you go into it thing for the exam, oh my god, that's going to be difficult, this is going to be difficult, right? But even the small things are going to be overwhelming simply because you're doing it for the first time and you will learn. But give
Yeah.
yourself time. So, third, mental preparedness. Fourth, the thing to take into consideration is you do have 3 years before your PLAB one. I mean, in between your PLAB one and PLAB two. Like that's the amount of time you can extend it. I'm not advising take that entire 3 years, but because
Right.
you have that time, don't rush it. Realistically, take time,
Hmm.
financials, mental preparedness, and the fact that you do have time between these two exams into account. And when you make that PLAB two booking, make a wise choice.
Hmm.
Take your time because you will need.
And I can add a note here, like when you're booking your PLAB 2 itself, right after you
Hmm.
book your PLAB 2, you can also book your flight ticket. So the earlier you book, the cheaper it gets, right? The ticket, you get the cheap
Hmm.
ticket for a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Right.
So within a day or two, you can also book your flight ticket. Then you can get a pretty good deal instead of waiting until the last minute.
Right, right. I think
So you
that's
can, right after PLAB 2, you can figure out your flight
hmm,
attachment. Given your attachment is also fixed, then you can book your flight. In case if your attachment is not fixed, then book a flexi ticket. If you're uh, if you want to change the dates in just in case.
right. Now that both of you have been talking about attachments, can you just brief exactly what it is and what are you speaking about?
Okay.
What exactly is an attachment and what is done during this period? If you can just brief us about that.
So a clinical attachment is basically a clinical observership in the hospital. It's more
Right,
for IMGs, international medical graduates who want to get a fresh perspective about the NHS, which is a very new system, which is an impressive system. It's one of the best healthcare cent- healthcare systems in the entire world. It's designed
right,
so flawless, and yeah, to get to know the services that the NHS offers, get to know how referrals work. It's different from how it works in our country, right?
correct.
And observing how we communicate with the patients, how the patient is being treated,
Hmm.
uh, not only medical wise, ethically, and how you talk to them, how you converse. The daily conversations also do matter. It's actually helpful for your PLAB too. So I would also suggest do your attachment first and then PLAB to get a better idea, even better, clear idea about what's happening in the NHS.
Right, right,
Attachments are a huge subject. We can give you exactly how to secure an attachment, everything that needs to be done before an attachment, the documentation you're required to provide, you're required to provide to apply for an attachment. What is the best period or different kinds of periods you can do your attachment, and there are so many things that we can tell you. So maybe we'll like try to have another session because people can really benefit if we talk about it
A
properly
part
rather
two,
than just
a part two
yes,
of this
yes,
podcast.
definitely. I think
yeah.
definitely we'll yeah,
In
we'll
part two
definitely
we
in
can
detail
provide.
about it. Yes, yes,
Yeah, because
absolutely.
there's a lot. People can really benefit from an attachment.
Right, right. Now, since quite some time we've been talking about the various financials involved for any student, and we also mentioned, both of you agree to that fact that it is very overwhelming when an Indian graduate, I think especially he or she travels, to UK for the first time, especially for education. Now,
Yeah.
let us talk about the different expenses that are involved, right, when a student travels for this exam.
Hmm.
So, first, let us talk about the accommodation.
Okay.
How about accommodation in UK? Like, how can a student look around for accommodation? And what type of accommodation will suit a student? And if you have any specific suggestions regarding the same, please let me know.
Okay. So accommodations is one of the hardest things. It is also actually as important as visa because we need to provide a statement where are staying in the UK. So
Right.
during our preparation time. Uh, so coming to accommodation, we can actually, if you have any relatives working or staying, living in the same city where your academy is also situated, then you can actually commute from their place if you can stay with them. You could commute from their place. That is one option.
Right.
And the second option is some of the academies do offer accommodation on on their websites. So maybe uh, you can try searching that one out. And the most common thing that everybody knows is Airbnb. Even though it is slightly expensive on
Hmm.
the expensive side, you can check nice Airbnbs. You can actually get a few cheaper ones. Also, there's another website called Spare Rooms, which is just like Airbnb. It's a lot cheaper.
Okay.
And yeah,
Yeah, you can find a
and
lot of
any
short
day.
term.
Mhm. Correct. Yeah, I
Sorry,
was just
I
gonna
just
get
wanted
to
to
that.
mention that there's a lot of short term lettings on that. So like for a
Yeah,
month or 2 months, you can find short term lets on that. Whereas in Airbnb, I think you'll end up paying like a weekly charge or like it's
yeah.
generally more expensive.
Okay.
So
So, what is the approximate cost we are looking for in the accommodation part? Say, if we are looking for a month or so, what is the average cost? Like you mentioned for tickets, right? If you can give me an average figure for the same.
So it actually depends on the number of days that you're staying. So
Right.
I can give you a per day average could be around
Okay.
30 to 40 pounds per night.
Okay. Right.
So
Okay.
that again depends on the place where you're staying. If you're staying in a city, it's different. And again, if you're staying in a
Hmm.
smaller
Right.
town, it's different. But you can range it from 30 to 40. It was at the time when we were doing a plateau in 2023,
Right.
30 to 40 pounds per night.
Okay. So you would suggest that, staying in the same city where you're opting for a training or so will be beneficial because the travel time, I think, will be reduced and it will be more convenient.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like please opt for accommodation that's very close to your academies, because your
Right.
classes will be starting by like 9 a.m. in the morning, and
Right.
classes will go until like 5 p.m. And post 5 p.m. you will choose to stay at the academy to practice with your
Practice.
Hmm.
Correct.
your fellow um, your fellow students over there. So practice will sometimes go until 8 9 p.m. So
Right.
if you have an accommodation close to where your academy is, that is so much better for you. Otherwise, buses stop functioning after a certain time, and it'll just be a nightmare for you to get back home after that.
Right. Right. So now moving on to the next other expenses. I'm also sure that there will be uh, a change in the cultural. It'll kind of be a cultural shock if I'm not exaggerating it in terms of food as well for many of us. So if we have to look at the costs, other costs apart from accommodation, like what other costs a student can incur on a daily basis, like say for food or for training materials or whatever, if you want to add something to that.
Yeah. So I if I were to give you a list, like I seem to be listing everything out, but if I were to do another list, I would say 100% food is the first thing you need to think about. We
Yes.
all need sustenance, right? So that's the first on the top of the list of your other expenses.
Correct.
Food, you do have two options. One, you can learn to cook if you've not cooked ever in your life, or two, you can buy takeout and eat that. So food, like prepared food, takeout food in the UK is generally more expensive than where you would be coming from. So I found a huge difference in the amount of money I would spend on like a normal, you know, uh, fast food meal. It would cost me like 20 pounds just to get a normal meal, whereas in India, that the same thing would be like 300 rupees. So the craft difference in that was so surprising to me initially. So this is an
Right.
option for you. I personally wouldn't suggest it. One, because you need to be super healthy when you are preparing for an exam.
Correct.
Hmm.
Nutrition is very important. So
True.
please keep yourselves, nourished. You
Hmm.
need to be healthy. Your head needs to be in the game. It is an
Right.
option though. You can always choose to buy food every day. It will be a little more expensive. The
Hmm.
second option is local grocery stores. So I can list the most expensive to least expensive for you. The most expensive would be like Marks and Spencer's has like a grocery. These are the most common, like I'm talking. When any city or town you go to, you'll definitely find these five stores there. You
Right.
can find a Marks and Spencer's
Yeah.
food. They're the most expensive. The second two that you can find that are expensive but not as expensive as this are your local Sainsbury and your local Tesco. Here you
Okay.
can find all kinds of raw produce to like meats and milk and cereals and all of the stuff, right?
Hmm.
So this is a little less expensive than Marks and Spencers, but it's definitely quite on the pricier side. But if you're looking to properly budget, you'll always have an Asda or a Lidl wherever you live. So the same things
Okay.
you can get like for easy £5 cheaper. So anyone
Okay.
who's listening, you can always take note of these things. You will always find these five things wherever you live because it's like normal to find all of this when you walk around.
Right.
Average on a week, you will, if you're choosing to buy at your local grocery store, you will end up spending average 30 to 50 pounds a week, which is still much better than the 20 to 30 pounds you would spend every day if you were
For
buying
me.
um,
Right. Right. Right.
yeah, per day. buying
per day.
food from like a fast food joint or a restaurant or something, right? The only downside is you'll have to cook a little bit, but it's nice. If you're into it, it's always nice to learn something new. Um,
Yeah.
Sorry, there
And
seems to
when
be a
you're
power
booking your
outage here,
account,
but I
Not a problem. Maybe you can, you know,
can I just
touch that.
continue talking? Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, no problem. Absolutely no
Yeah.
issues.
Thank
If you're
you.
comfortable, you can keep the video on, or if you're fine, you can even. Okay, no worries.
I'm okay. They just need to hear what I'm saying, right? So that's
Yes,
good.
yes,
The
yes.
third thing is mock exams. So when you're preparing for your exams, what the first part will be actually studying. Oh, awesome! The first part will be preparing. So the materials for your exam itself, like the books and the videos and the lectures, will be provided by your academy and whichever subscription you're taking from them. So you
Hmm.
won't have to spend any extra money for that.
Hmm.
That will come. It depends. Some academies may charge you, but very rarely they charge you. So for the basic preparation materials, you won't have to pay anything. The 600 to 800 pounds that you're spending on your academy will cover all of your prep materials. You will, and inside of your subscription, you will also get like mock exams. But if you are going to take extra mocks, uh, you will have to pay extra for it. So maybe keep that. That's the third thing you'll have to keep in mind for extra charges. The fourth thing that you have to keep in mind is have fun, go easy on yourself. You're still in a new place, so take into account leisure. I know you will tell
Mhm.
yourself, oh, I'm going to go there only to prepare, I'm only going to study. 3 weeks into it, you'll want to do like a small road trip somewhere, you'll want to go hiking somewhere, and your mind needs it. Your mind needs to relax, right? Your mind needs,
Absolutely.
you're meeting new people, you're making new friends. It's good to go out there, relax for a bit. So, leisure. Definitely set some amount of money aside for leisure. Please don't think you are above it. You need it. So
After a
set some
really
money
stressful
aside.
day of practice, you want something to wind up to, or at least
Yeah.
a small break to get your brain refreshed.
Because
Yeah.
that was
Like
my
even,
next question. You know,
oh, okay.
because you are going to a different country. I mean, you definitely want to experience the culture, the
Yeah.
people there, and the surroundings there, and that should be a part of your learning as well, because it's not just about PLAB completely, right?
Correct.
uh,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
will have to experience, and because that itself is a life learning, I think.
Absolutely
Learning to
right.
integrate, exactly, learning to integrate into their society. The sooner you do it, the better. Because eventually
Correct.
that's where you're going to go, right?
That's what
And
the
they have,
exam is also about.
yeah, it does.
Right.
So I actually learned to talk to like a lot of
Hmm.
Caucasian people simply because I would go out a lot. And communication, I would say Indians have pretty good, like strong communication skills, right? But
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
is still a little jarring sometimes. So the more you go out, the more you meet the local people, the more you spend time on leisure activities, you also pick up on their culture really quick, which makes it easier for
Correct.
you to perform in your exam also. And that aside, you're going to need a break. Be realistic. So set aside money for some leisure. Travel, go on some trips, go visit Scotland. Like definitely have these things in your itinerary. Don't be so hard on yourself. So set aside a little
Yeah.
bit of money for leisure, not too much. Whatever you can afford, set aside a little bit of money because you're going to need it. Now, the
Right.
fifth thing that you have to keep in mind is the actual travel to Manchester for your exam. So wherever your academy is located, if in Manchester, great. If not, you are going to have to travel there. So keep
Right.
aside some money to travel to Manchester. I would
Hmm.
suggest you travel to Manchester a day before your exam or 2 days before your exam and stay there because uh, traveling on the morning of your exam is not advisable. Anything
Not
could go
Hmm.
wrong,
advisable at
right?
all.
Yeah, and you're going to be really stressed. So do not, personally, I would suggest do not travel on your exam. Go a night before. Um, take a room there. So keep in mind that the travel to Manchester is going to cost you. The travel back or to the airport or whatever your next step is, travel. So the sixth thing you have to keep in mind is traveling, getting from point A to point B.
Hmm.
So you have to set aside money to travel. Whatever your point A is, whatever your point B is, set aside some money to travel. So what maybe we can give you like a detailed description of how much you would realistically need for each. But these are the main topics. I mean, these are the main things you have to keep in mind when it comes to extra expenses.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Dr. Ashish, you would like to add anything to the same?
So the traveling the night before the exam is really important. I would strongly suggest on that because it did personally help me a lot. So
Hmm.
going there, looking at the exam center, I didn't want to leave it to the morning of my exam.
Right.
So just to get a awareness about how everything is at the surroundings, the way to get there actually helps you to relieve your stress just before the exam. Trust me, you need that walk. You will walk from
Yeah,
your room to
walk
your
around.
exam center. It
Go to
can relieve
your
a lot of stress.
yeah, go to like wherever you're registered, street or square. Go to that building, have a good look at that building. Be like, this is where I need to be tomorrow. It helps a lot to like relieve anxiety.
I
Yeah,
think
there are
it's,
two centers for
that,
PLAB part.
yeah, it'll start your mental preparedness right there, right? So I think that is going to
Correct.
help
Yeah.
you. Yeah. You were saying about the
So there are
centers.
two
Yeah.
centers for PLAB Part 2 exam. One is the street, Manchester, 3 Manchester Street, and 3 Manchester, so 3 Hardman Square and 3 Hardman Street.
Okay.
So those two are the centers for the exam. And they're quite opposite to each other. So you don't really have to figure out a way
Hmm.
between those two. But if you know one, your eyes are already on the next one. So
Yeah, they're
just
just
figure
like
out the
two
way.
opposite.
Hmm.
You just have
Yeah.
to get to the point of Hardman Street or Hardman Square.
Right.
They're opposite.
Yeah.
I think that's a really detailed list that you both have provided us regarding the other expenses that students can look forward to during the exams. I would like to ask here when it comes to transport that you were mentioning, Dr. Monica, the transport if you have to travel within the city, say in Manchester itself for that matter. Is it better to take the public transport, and how is it? If you can just talk about that.
Yeah, I can. So public transport always the best option in the UK. They have excellent
Right.
public transport there. I very rarely, especially IMGs who go for like exams, no one really rents a car or anything.
Right.
You'd use public transport. So
We live on
definitely
public
strongly advise.
transport. That.
Yeah, like oh my god, I used to live off of public transport. So yeah, strongly advise public transport. Now that we've gotten into the topic of public transport, you can think of transport as three different options. The third
Right.
option, the last option, would be renting a car, like I said, which you can leave for your leisure activities. Say you're traveling
Hmm.
or something. For a weekend, maybe you'll rent a car, realistically, if you want to. Some most people take
Right.
trains, but if you want, that's your third option. The first two are the main things you will be focusing on inside of where you live and to get from one point, from one city to another city.
Hmm.
Inside of where you live, depending on the distance between your accommodation and your academy, you can either walk it, form of transport, or
Yeah.
you will take the bus or the tram.
Right.
The bus or tram uh, per day passes are usually £2,
Okay.
and if you live
Yeah.
15 minutes away and you can walk, some days you want to walk, some days you want to take a bus. uh, if you were to take a bus, it will cost you like £2, the per day pass. But
Right.
say bus or tram is your only way to get to the academy, you're still in the same city, but you still have to take a bus to get from point A to point B. Take
Hmm.
a weekly pass. I used to take a weekly pass. So my
Hmm.
weekly pass cost me £20. So
Right.
depending on before you travel, take out Google Maps, see where everything is located, and plan. See
Right.
realistically how much you will have to set aside for these things. Because these are the things that will come as a shock over there. If you
Hmm.
are sponsoring yourself or you're dependent on somebody else to sponsor you and you only have this much of cash, set aside all of this cash. It's like £20 per week is not easy. But if you need it, you need it, right? So set it aside, financially plan for it.
Correct.
So this is inside of where you live, inside of the city that you live. Say you want to get from point A to point B, but it's city to city. So, for instance, you're going to travel for your exam, right? Your two options are train and bus, coaches. So for train, you will use your train line app. I hope everyone's like making a note. So for the train, you'll use your train line app. You can, and then for your coaches, you'll use the National Express app. These are the two
Express.
apps I use. Yeah. So these are the two apps I used. Maybe there are more, but these are the most famous ones, and these are what I used. In train line, um, which sorry, I'll first tell you which is more economical and which is less. So obviously, coaches are going to be more economical. Your tickets for getting from point A to point B in a bus are going to be cheaper than a train.
Correct.
So if you are fully focusing on that, coaches, National Express, you're going to get great deals on that. But say you do want to travel by train, but you want more economical tickets, I would suggest you get a rail card. This is the mistake I made. I never took a rail card.
Okay.
Ashish always kept telling me to take a rail card, but I never did.
Well, I didn't get my
So,
thanks yet. I'm
so,
kidding. I got it long ago.
so you'll end up paying £30 for your rail card, but
Okay.
you'll essentially one third of every train's charge will be deducted. So you'll get like one
Okay.
third, which is a 30%
Yeah.
discount on all of your trains, whatever trains you book, right? You can
Right.
apply your rail. So
I
these
think
are the
I
two
think this
ways
is
of.
something similar to what we have here in metro cards. If you have a
Ha,
metro card itself, the price I think is
Yeah.
10% off on your ticket or something. So I think it's something
something like
Right.
similar to
yeah.
that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think definitely that makes sense, and that's a very valid point. So thanks for sharing the website's name as well. Highly appreciate that. Now moving on to our next topic regarding our mock exams that both of you have been talking about. These mock exams are during the preparation for PLAB 2, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so uh, Regarding the training, the coaching that you have been speaking about, like you have academies. So if you can just share something about these academies, how do they operate? And you also mentioned that we'll have to. Is it 5 day working or is it all 7 days, or how is it? Just brief on these academies for us, please.
So academies, they can be categorized into three types. Like one, there are online academies, and there's in-person academies, and there's another social media platforms where you get all the resources. Like so, coming first, let me start with online academies. There are some online courses where you can do, and some of the academies they only offer pure online, no in person. But I would strongly suggest take an in person when and visit yourself to the academy so and find people you can practice with. Trust
Right,
me, the online practice is it is good. It is required. It is definitely the one thing that you have to do even before you start your searching for the academy step. But once you choose an in-person academy, you'll have a lot of benefits. Like you will definitely get to know a lot more questions about how to deal with one particular scenario that is given to you in the exam.
right,
And social media platforms, by that I mean there's Telegram, there's WhatsApp, there's always groups available where you can just simply drop in a text and then ask for any suggestions or any.
right.
I personally know a few people who have not even taken one academy, not even
Okay,
subscribed to one course. They still managed to crack the exam just
right,
by preparing by themselves.
right.
So in person,
Wouldn't
you
doing that,
should be your
but
first preference. Yeah, it's a little risky.
I wouldn't. It's not something we advise. But if you
Yeah,
feel you can, it's always an option.
I
if
think
you're confident enough, go for it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that basically comes from the fact that, the way we treat and talk to patients in India is
Yeah,
very different culturally, I think, to how things happen in
Starkly
UK.
different.
yeah,
Yes, yes, right.
Yeah.
So I think it's better you have a beforehand knowledge on how things work over there. I think that will help,
good.
students be better prepared for PLAB too, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah. So maybe what you can do is, as soon as you pass your PLAB one, to go into your good medical practice. It's a document that is released every year. Read it properly. This is the first thing you can do to prepare yourself for the new thing. Second thing you can do, as Ashish said, you can enroll in an online academy during the time you're you're planning for your visa and you're doing all of that. While you're at home, enroll in an online academy. Start practicing with whoever you can find there. So this is, you can start your practice from home. Once you're
Right.
in the UK, enrolled in an academy, focus on your practice. Practice every day. The more you practice, the stronger you get.
The
It's
stronger you
not
get.
just about your yeah, it's not just about your theory knowledge, because you could know everything. You could know a lot. You could be the best, but your communication, how you verbalize what you know, that is
Hmm.
the most important thing.
Right.
They don't even penalize you if you don't know enough. You just need to know what you know. You need to know it
No,
properly. And if you don't know
properly.
something, you always have the space to be like, this is not, even in your exam, you have the space to be like, this is not something I am sure about. I will consult with my seniors and tell you. But what you know, learn to communicate it properly, learn to say it properly, be clear. And the only way you can do this is practice. So the sooner you start your practice, the better.
You knowing it, identifying the cues is a crucial key to the exam.
Right. Right. So if I will, I think you've already mentioned that once, but I just want to clarify regarding the same. What are these academies going to cost the student? Is it again depending on the number of days the student is at the academy? Is it on a weekly basis or is it on a monthly basis? How are they going to cost the students?
So the cost for online is different from in person.
Right.
It's like a package, exactly, Monica. And
Okay.
From
in
yeah,
for
sorry.
that's fine.
No,
So
no, please finish. I will go next.
for an in person, it costed us about 60,000 Indian rupees, and
Right.
for online, it is a little bit cheaper because you're not going there in person, using their service facilities and stuff. So for an online, both for anything, you have like 10 days full of exam orientation, the type of scenarios that you get in the exam, how they're
Right.
going to uh, simulate you for according to that situation.
Right.
So that is the basic idea of all the 10-day theory classes as well as practical. Like you need to know about the exam,
Yeah,
about the
so
scenario, about the approach. Yeah, you can go ahead, Monica.
yeah, so essentially it's going to, essentially it's going to cost you about 600 pounds, 600 to 800 pounds to enroll in an academy. It is not
Hmm.
a monthly charge, it is not a weekly charge. From the point of view paying for the academy till the point you take your exam, that's it. It's a one-time payment. So you
Right.
could enroll 3 months before, and your exam
Okay.
could be 4 months later or something like that. It's the same, 600 to
Okay.
800 pounds. You won't have to pay anything extra for it. So this is the amount of money you will have to set aside for the academy and the subscription of the academy and all the materials you get itself.
Right. Right. Okay. So it has been an amazing discussion and a very insightful one, I should say. So thanks to you both, Monica and Dr. Ashish. I'm
No problem.
sure the speakers who've been listening to us today have benefited a lot with the list that Dr. Monica has provided us and also the insights that Dr. Ashish has given us. So, yeah, I think with this, we'll end our part one of this series, right? Definitely, we are coming back next week, if I'm not wrong. So,
Yes.
we'll plan a mutual time, right? And we'll meet again for a part two of this series which will give more insights to all our students and graduates who are preparing for this exam. And I highly appreciate both of you taking out your time and being with us today. So thank you, Dr. Ashish, and thank you, Dr. Monica. It was indeed great
Happy to
talking
help.
to you all.
Thank you
Happy to
for the
help. Stay
opportunity.
tuned for some pro
Happy
tips
to
for the
help.
next part.
Yes, 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 absolutely. So looking forward to
Oh,
the part
sorry.
two of this. Yes, yes,
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to add. Although this is about the PLAB journey,
yes.
everyone who's listening, just keep in mind it ends with 2024. So from next year, you're going to have UK
Yeah,
MLA. But everything
MLA.
we're saying still applies for everything we're
Right.
saying still applies for that, right? Not much is going to change because we're still talking about expenses and academies and everything. So what we're saying, you can take that, 95% of it is going to be the same for you. So you can still use all of this information,
The
even though your
pattern still
exam is going
remains
to
the
change.
same, most of it.
Right.
Even the pattern is still going to remain the same, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So thanks for that information as well. Thank you, viewers, and I'm sure we're going to have another interesting session next time in part 2. So looking forward to that, and thanks and good day to both of you, Dr. Ashish and Dr. Monica.
Thank you. Thank you to the
You too.
Yeah,
viewers
Have a
good
nice
day.
and Dr. Anjana. All the best to who was preparing.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, all the
Thanks.
best.
Hope this session helped.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All
and
right.
yeah, thanks. And I'll be ending the stream right now.